All right, so what's going on, guys? So in today's video, we're going to be working on part 2 of the balance shaft delete. I went ahead and cut the video in half just because it was getting to be a bit long. But in this half of the video, we're going to be working on the front case / oil pump. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so now we're going to start working with the oil pump and get this prepped. So we open it up. Of course, we have the oil pump itself, as well as a bunch of gaskets. Alright, so now oil pump out. So the first step before you even begin to install anything or start to really mess with this is you want to compare this with the one that you took off the car, because with a lot of companies, and depending on what the part is, they won't let you send it back once you fit it, or it looks like it's been modified. They can't resell it. They're not going to take it back. So it is possible they sent you the wrong one. It is possible that you ordered the wrong one. So you want to double check and compare this with the unit that you took off before you install it. Of course, I'm checking for overall shape. I'm checking to make sure my oil galleys are in the same place. All right, so I'm happy with that. It looks like it's the same piece. This looks like a pretty good piece too. So I have the old one over here, and that's just because these bolts are all different lengths. So I'm using this as a template basically to tell me where these bolts go. So that is why that's over here on the side. So all you're gonna need, of course, is your stubby shaft that came with your kit. Again, you want to get an OEM stubby shaft, not one of those cheap eBay knockoffs. I got castle nut. We're gonna use some Loctite. I'm gonna use some blue Loctite. I need a Phillips head screwdriver and a 12mm. So when you're looking at this thing, this is actually the front of it. Your oil filter housing goes over here, and this is where the pulley for your balance shaft normally is. One quick note, in case I forget to mention it later, is that this actually blocks off an oil passage. So if you decide to not use this pulley, again, which you don't have to because you don't need it, you do need to put a shorter bolt in that hole. So we're going to start with the oil pump, and again, that's on this side. Now they are 12mm, but you can also use a Phillips, again, because they weren't tight. We do have this one Phillips head that is down here. The one thing I do like about this ACL pump is that it comes with these gears, whereas the OEM one does not. So we're going to take these gears out. So this little one is the one that we'll be working with. I do want to point out there is a little dot on this gear, and there's also another one on the bigger gear as well. Now, those are used for alignment for your balance shafts. Because we're deleting the balance shafts, we don't need those, don't need to do anything with those, but I am making you guys aware of that. Also remember, the dot faces up. If we look at this gear, you can see that it's keyed. The top of it is flat. So we're just going to take the flat end of our stubby shaft, and that's just going to go in there. And we're just going to put our bolt back in. I did clean this one up. And we're going to use a little bit of Loctite on this. If you were just rebuilding your oil pump and you were putting your balance shafts back in, you would make sure that these two dots are lined up with one another. But because we are just doing a delete, it really doesn't matter. We're going to put our case back on. I'm just going to put a bolt in here to hold it together because it's sitting on a flat surface. But now, of course, we are going to put some blue Loctite on all of these bolts as well. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and torque these bolts down. Of course, you could just hit it with the impact and ugga-dug it, but we're going to try to do this the right way. If you decide not to torque these down, you just be careful. These are only going to be torqued down to like 22 foot-pounds, and this case is aluminum. So you can break these pretty easily, and if you crack it, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. All right, so our bolts are torqued down. We're going to work on the oil pump side. Now, what I've seen people recommend is to just put a very, very thin layer of RTV on this ring and seal it there. I'm also going to put some thread sealer onto these threads on the castle nut just to make sure that it does not leak. So what I have some gray RTV, a little bit on my finger, and we're going to work that around the ring here. I just want to coat that O-ring. And honestly, I'm not sure how much that's really going to do, but I believe that it's not going to hurt either. Now, they do make a special tool, special socket for this castle nut. We're just going to take a flathead screwdriver and tap the edges of it. Now, of course, that doesn't have to be super tight. You don't want to damage it. But with that thread sealer, the RTV, that should be good to go. So at this point, I'm going to take my gear off of my old one. And this is keyed as well, meaning it has a flat spot on it. So it goes on there a certain way. And we're just going to line this up. And just like the rest of the bolts, we're going to put some Loctite on our nut here. Our next step is to remove this little gasket here. I got this little ring out, and the easiest way to do it is actually to flip this over. From the back of it, you can see the outsides of the ring. I just used a small flathead, put it up against it, and then with my mallet, I was able to tap it out. So the next step is going to be to press in this plug here. So this is another factory piece for cars that didn't come with balance shafts. Now, if you get a kit, which I don't even know if they make these anymore, but if you get a kit that has a freeze plug, you're going to need to mix up some JB Weld and push this in there. But this should fit in here nice and snug. I'm just going to put a little bit of gasket maker on this thing as well to seal this in here to make sure it does not leak. And this doesn't have to be pretty. I do want to get a good amount of this gasket stuff. And I'm just going to drop this plug in here. And of course, because it is a factory part, it fits perfectly. You just want to push it all the way in there, make sure it's good and tight, and then I'm going to wipe off the top of it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off the excess, and it also gives us a good chance to make sure it is seated in there firmly and it's flush, so it should be even all the way around, no edges sticking up. This is pretty much all you need to do with this. I've also seen some places where they recommend putting just a little bit of JB Weld on this top lip, which I think I will do just to make sure that stays in there. Remember once again that this hole, you're going to have to plug it with something. So either use a shorter bolt or put that pulley back in there. Personally, I'm going to try to use a shorter bolt just because, we don't need that there. All right, so the first step is we're going to wipe this thing off again just to make sure. As you can see, I went ahead and copper sprayed the gasket. Now I did go ahead and wipe off the back of the case with some acetone as well, so I know it's clean. Now I'm just going to line these up on the dowels. So now that that is on there, I went ahead and got my old one, and I'm just going to start replacing some of these bolts. Now, I think what I'll actually do is just put a couple of these in just to secure it, and then I'll take them back off to clean these bolts up. Okay, all right, guys, so she is on and she is flush. Like I said, I'm going to put the rest of the bolts in here after I clean them up. I just want to put those two to hold it. And now I'm going to see if I can find a bolt that will fit in that hole. So the only problem with this is I really don't know how long this bolt needs to be. Just that it needs to be shorter. So I want to find a bolt that's the same strength as this one. In this case, it's a grade 7. And just see if I can get one that threads all the way in before it bottoms out. So this bolt is going to be a little too long, but it does give me a good reference as to how long it needs to be. All right, guys, so I think I have a winner. Again, I don't know where this bolt came from. It was just in my box of bolts. So I got some thread locker on it, and I put some RVT at the top. So at this point, all you need to do is just remove the bolts from your original case, or if you're reusing your case, I would recommend making a cardboard template. Probably trace it out and then put the bolt holes in, just something to keep it organized. All right, guys, so I think I forgot to mention this, but if you're wondering how you go about torquing the bolt that's on the back of the stubby shaft or the front of the stubby shaft and the sprocket, it's a couple ways you can do it. You can put it in a vise, especially if you got like some soft jaws on your vise, or you can use an open-end wrench. I'm using a 14, and you can actually feel, or you can actually reach the stubby shaft from the back. So you're not gonna be able to see it, but you're gonna have to put your open-end wrench back in here and kind of feel for the stubby shaft. So what I'll do then is kind of turn it. You're gonna turn the sprocket until it engages with the wrench, and then so I'm just using a 14 to demonstrate because I don't remember what size it was, but this is how you would go about torquing it down. You can hold the stubby shaft with the wrench and then put your torque wrench on your bolts and torque them down. Alright guys, so that's it. We are officially done with the balance shaft delete. It's definitely nice to have that peace of mind that that's one less part that I have to worry about failing. I do recommend that you get a torque wrench if you don't already have one, and torque everything down. As you saw, most of those bolts don't take a lot of torque, and most of those bolts aren't that strong, so it's easy to snap one in half. And of course, if you're wanting a copper spray, it's not necessary. The plain gasket by itself will probably do just as good a job, but it is a little bit of reassurance. I'm not even sure if it really does anything, but in my opinion, it can't hurt. So I do want to thank you guys for watching the video. If you didn't earlier, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Have a great day.